The series starts by introducing a young man named Hee Tae-jong, who works at a major company in South Korea called the Sunyang Corporation. Tae-jong is great at his job and puts in a lot of effort, but the family that owns the company treats him poorly. To them, he's more like a servant than an employee. In one humiliating moment, they even made him clean a family member's bathroom. The Sunyang Corporation was originally founded by a man named Jin Young-cheol, but now it's managed by his children, their spouses, and his grandchildren. The family members each have important roles. Ji Young-ki is the CEO. Jin Sung-joon is set to take over in the future. Jin Dong-ki works as the chief operating officer, and Jin Wai-young holds a senior executive position. Young-cheol had 4 children, and one of them, Jin Young-ki, chose a simpler life. Unlike the others, he didn't join the family business and instead works an ordinary job, staying away from the corporate world. The story picks up when the police suspect Sunyang Corporation of avoiding taxes. To investigate, they send a sharp and determined lawyer named Min Young. But before she arrives, Tae-jong takes action. He quickly hides all the documents that prove the company's tax evasion, making the investigation pointless. You'd expect Tae-jong to be praised for protecting the company, right? Well, that doesn't happen. The family still ignores his hard work and sacrifice. Only Jin Young-ki shows any sign of appreciation for what Tae-jong did. But Tae-jong's troubles don't end there. One day, a co-worker reveals to him a file that exposes tax evasion by a Sunyang family member. Tae-jong immediately takes the file to Kim Go-yoon, the finance director. Instead of taking action, Go-yoon warns Tae-jong to stay away from family matters and then destroys the evidence. Feeling lost and frustrated, Tae-jong decided he had to act on his own. He quietly handed the evidence over to Sung-joon, the son of the CEO and the company's future leader. When Sung-joon discovered Go-yoon's involvement in the tax evasion scandal, he was furious. It felt like a deep betrayal because he had trusted Go-yoon for years. As a result, Sung-joon fired Go-yoon, even though it hurt him to do so. To fix the situation, Sung-joon promoted Tae-jong to the position of finance director. He gave Tae-jong an important mission: to recover the stolen money hidden in a bank in Turkey. Determined to succeed, Tae-jong set out for Turkey. But as soon as he arrived, he realized something was wrong. Powerful people from the Sunyang conglomerate had sent spies to watch and harm him. These hitmen captured Tae-jong, dragged him to a cliff, and murdered him. It was shocking for Tae-jong to discover that the person who betrayed him was none other than the same co-worker who had originally given him the evidence. Just when Tae-jong thought his story was over, something unbelievable happened. Instead of dying, he woke up in a different body. At first, he thought he was dead, but soon he realized he had somehow traveled back in time. He was now living as Do-jun, the son of Young-cheol's 4th child. In this new life, Tae-jong met younger versions of the Sunyang family members, and he immediately suspected that one of them could be his future killer. Determined to find out the truth, he carefully observed each of them. Eventually, he came face to face with the head of Sunyang Corporation, Young-cheol. Tae-jong was amazed to see this legendary figure in person, having only read about him in a future biography. Young-cheol was known for being harsh on his children, but Tae-jong, now in Do-jun's body, was determined to earn his respect and plot his revenge against the Sunyang family. However, Young-cheol was still bitter about his son Young-ki leaving the company, so he barely paid attention to Do-jun. Tae-jong knew he had a secret advantage: his knowledge of the future. He saw an opportunity to impress Young-cheol and gain his trust by accurately predicting the winner of the next presidential election. At first, no one believed him, but when his prediction came true, even Young-cheol was stunned. Young-cheol called Do-jun to ask how he managed to predict the outcome of the presidential election. Do-jun answered casually, saying it was just like guessing the result of a class president election, which left Young-cheol surprisingly impressed. Young-cheol then asked him a puzzling question about how a small shrimp could defeat a giant whale. At first, Do-jun was stumped, but later he figured out it had to do with Young-cheol's plan to buy a conductor manufacturing company. He realized that Young-cheol was worried the owner might sell the company to a bigger competitor in the industry instead. Eager to share his insight, Do-jun tried to call Young-cheol, but he couldn't get through. He soon learned that Young-cheol was in Baghdad for a meeting. Suddenly, Do-jun remembered a terrifying event from the future. The plane Yang Cheol was on would explode, leading to his death. Determined to prevent this disaster, Do-jun kept trying to contact his grandfather, but none of his calls worked. Desperate, he rushed to Yang Cheol's house and told Secretary Kim the answer to the shrimp and whale question. He also shared that Yang Cheol's plan to buy the conductor manufacturing company would be successful. Unfortunately, Do-jun's grim prediction came true, and the plane exploded, leaving everyone convinced that Yang Cheol had died. The Sunyang family was overcome with shock and grief. But in a twist, Yang Cheol appeared alive and unharmed, stunning everyone. People were curious about how he had survived such a close call. Yang Cheol decided to keep Do-jun's message a secret, including the answer to the question and the prediction about the conductor company. It turned out Do-jun had been right again. The plane Yang Cheol was supposed to take back to South Korea exploded, but Yang Cheol managed to escape death. The entire Sunyang family was amazed and confused, wondering how their powerful leader had cheated fate. Yang Cheol had doubts about buying the conductor manufacturing company, but Do-jun's answer changed his mind. With newfound determination, he decided to go through with the purchase. Yang Cheol even altered his schedule to return to South Korea earlier, just in time to close a deal with the company's owner. This quick decision saved him from boarding the doomed flight. The next day, Do-jun visited Yang Cheol and revealed his secret about predicting important events. He explained that he could sense Yang Cheol's true feelings and use that knowledge to see into the future. Yang Cheol was amazed and impressed. He wanted to reward Do-jun for his talent, but Do-jun had something specific in mind. Instead of money, he asked for an acceptance letter from the prestigious Seoul National University. Yang Cheol had always dreamed of someone from his family attending that university, but it had never happened. Do-jun also requested that his family be allowed to join the powerful Sunyang conglomerate. Yang Cheol was curious and a bit confused, but he eventually agreed, thanks to Do-jun's prediction. This decision puzzled the rest of the Sunyang family, who couldn't understand what was going on. But just a few years later, Do-jun fulfilled his promise. He got accepted into Seoul National University, breaking records with the highest score ever achieved there. His success didn't go unnoticed, and he became famous for his incredible accomplishments. On top of that, the piece of land he had asked for turned out to be incredibly valuable, making him a millionaire at a very young age. The Sunyang family couldn't believe how lucky Do-jun seemed to be, and they started to worry. They feared Yang Cheol might change his will, which named Sung-jun, his eldest grandson, as the next company president, and instead choose Do-jun. Do-jun also helped his dad with his film business. He suggested investing in holiday movies like Home Alone that would be played on TV year after year. The investment was a huge success, and Do-jun even got invited to a film festival in New York. While attending the festival, he met a young attorney named Seo Min-young, and the two crossed paths in an unexpected way. While Do-jun was in the United States, he met a successful investor named Mr. O. Mr. O told him that investing in the Titanic film would be a major hit. Do-jun had a strong feeling that Mr. O was right. Mr. O had a great reputation in the investment world, with a history of making smart and profitable decisions. Do-jun saw a great opportunity to work with Mr. O, but there was a challenge. Mr. O was hesitant because Do-jun was young and lacked experience in the investment world. But Do-jun managed to impress him by correctly predicting the outcome of a famous chess match between a world champion and a computer. When the computer won, Mr. O was convinced of Do-jun's potential. Do-jun had big plans beyond just working with Mr. O. He wanted to take control of the Sunyang Corporation, and he believed that acquiring Hando Steel would be a crucial step toward achieving that goal. It was a risky move, but Do-jun was driven by his desire for revenge against the Sunyang family. Meanwhile, Ji Yong-ki, the director of Sunyang Corporation, became suspicious and ordered his team to investigate the investors involved in the Hando Steel deal. This investigation led them to Mr. O and Do-jun. The next day, Yang Cheol and his family attended a car race, and Do-jun joined them. One of the race cars was built by the Sunyang Corporation. Unfortunately, the car began to overheat, but the CEO, Ji Yong-ki, pressured the driver to keep going. The situation ended in disaster when the driver tragically lost his life. Do-jun, who had read about Yang Cheol's life in a future biography, knew exactly where Yang Cheol would go to clear his mind. Yang Cheol often visited a building owned by Sunyang Corporation, where he kept his collection of vintage cars. When Do-jun arrived there, he saw Yang Cheol admiring one of his classic cars. Do-jun approached him and started talking about the company's history. He shared how it all began with just 2 trucks used to deliver rice and how it later expanded into Sunyang transportation. Over time, Yang Cheol had become interested in machinery and the fuel industry, which helped grow the company even more. After their conversation, Yang Cheol and Do-jun left for the Sunyang Corporation's new car launch event. Meanwhile, Ji Yong-ki received troubling news. Another company, Daeung Corporation, was planning to buy Hando Steel for a higher price than what Mr. Oh and Do-jun had offered. Desperate to prove himself to his father, Ji Yong-ki decided to outbid Daeung Corporation, even if it meant borrowing money from his father-in-law. Yang Cheol had been watching Mr. Oh and Do-jun closely, even going so far as to plant a hidden listening device in a flower pot to overhear their conversation. He was convinced that they were behind the company that bought Hando Steel. Yang Cheol also suspected Do-jun was using power shares because he remembered that Do-jun had gone to a film festival in New York with his father. He figured that Do-jun and Mr. Oh must have struck some kind of deal there. To confirm his suspicions, Yang Cheol set up a meeting with Mr. Oh in his room. Instead of beating around the bush, Yang Cheol went straight to Tae Jae-duk and demanded to know if Do-jun had used power shares to buy Hando Steel. But Jae-duk surprised him with a revelation. Do-jun had actually used that money to purchase an e-commerce company called Kdrama. Shocking, right? But there was an even bigger surprise. Jae-duk also revealed that someone from the Sunyang family had secretly helped the Daeung company buy Hando Steel by giving them financial support. And who was it? It turned out to be Yang Cheol's own son, Dong Ki. When Yang Cheol confronted Dong Ki about it, Dong Ki defended his actions, claiming he did it for the benefit of Sunyang Corporation, even though it had cost the company a fortune. Meanwhile, Do-jun and Jae-duk were quietly celebrating their successful plan. They had tricked Dong Ki into wasting a huge amount of money on Hando Steel. They also found out that Sunyang Corporation had been spying on their hotel conversation, but Do-jun cleverly used that to his advantage. Do-jun had another bold idea. He suggested to Jae-duk that they invest in a struggling company called Ajin Motors, which was facing severe financial difficulties due to the monetary crisis. Jae-duk was hesitant at first because Ajin Motors had a lot of debt, but Do-jun kept pushing him, convinced it would pay off. Interestingly, Yang Cheol had a similar plan. He wanted to invest in Ajin Motors to strengthen Sunyang Motors, one of Sunyang Corporation's subsidiaries. Yang Cheol was determined to take over Ajin Motors, but the monetary crisis created serious challenges for Sunyang Corporation. During this time, his grandson Song-jun returned to Korea after studying abroad. At the airport, Song-jun met a girl named Mo Hyun-min, who would eventually become his wife. Hyun-min's father owned a media company, which added to her family's influence. Yang Cheol was thrilled to have Song-jun back, as he needed strong young leaders to help steer the company through these difficult times. Yang Cheol told Song-jun about his plan for him to marry Hyun-min, and surprisingly, Song-jun was completely fine with it. But their happiness was short-lived. One of Yang Cheol's informants brought bad news. Ajin Motors had been taken over by a new company called Miracle Investment. And who was behind it? Mr. Oh, the same person who had disrupted their plans with Hando Steel before. Eventually, Ajin Motors and Do-jun's company struck a deal, but there was one condition. All current workers had to keep their jobs, and none of the staff managers could be replaced. Do-jun agreed to this because his own dad worked at Ajin Motors, and he knew that if nothing changed, the workers would lose their jobs in the future. Sadly, when his mom saw the news on TV, she suffered a heart attack and passed away. Do-jun and Mr. Oh faced even more challenges. Yang Cheol, being a powerful and influential man, did everything he could to ruin their plans for Ajin Motors. He even created tension between Do-jun and Mr. Oh. Mr. Oh was against keeping all the workers, thinking it would be too expensive, but Do-jun held his ground and stuck to his plan. Then, Do-jun had a sudden realization and came up with a strategy to invest in Ajin Motors while still protecting the workers. He offered to help Sunyang Corporation, which didn't have enough money to buy Ajin Motors. Do-jun said he would provide the funds for the acquisition if Sunyang Corporation gave him a stake in the company. But despite his efforts, he couldn't save his mom. She tragically took her own life, and Do-jun later found out it wasn't because of the potential layoffs at Ajin Motors. Instead, it was because she had invested in a Sunyang Corporation subsidiary that was on the brink of bankruptcy. Fueled by grief and determination, Do-jun took action. He persuaded Chang Ji, the head of the struggling subsidiary, to run for mayor of Seoul. Amazingly, Chang Ji won and became the new mayor. With Chang Ji in power, Do-jun saw a golden opportunity to take control of a major project that Sunyang Corporation had been trying to secure. This infuriated Yang Cheol, who had been counting on controlling that project. Finally, Do-jun revealed the shocking truth to Yang Cheol. He was the mastermind behind Miracle Investment. Yang Cheol was stunned and furious. He couldn't believe that his own grandson had sabotaged Sunyang Corporation's plans. Feeling betrayed, Yang Cheol accused Do-jun of plotting to take over the company. Then he passed on the responsibility for revenge to his other grandson, Sung-jun. Sung-jun eagerly accepted the challenge and managed to convince all the investors to pull out of the mega project plan for the new Seoul City. This left Mr. Oh and Do-jun in a difficult position, but Do-jun quickly came up with a clever idea. He suggested advertising their project on various internet platforms, like online games and streaming websites. This approach was unusual at the time, but has since become very common. It was a smart move. An online advertising company showed interest in working with Miracle Investment, but there was a catch. Do-jun had to meet the company owner, Hyun-min. When they finally met, Hyun-min was impressed by Do-jun's intelligence and vision. She even tried to flirt with him, but Do-jun turned her down because he was interested in Min-young, the woman he truly liked. Unfortunately, rejecting Hyun-min's advances backfired on Do-jun. His internet advertising plan fell apart, and Hyun-min ended up marrying Sung-jun instead. She believed Sung-jun would one day take over Sunyang Corporation, especially since he had taken over the Seoul City megaproject from Do-jun. But Do-jun didn't give up. He came up with another plan. He proposed that Daeung Corporation invest in the Seoul City megaproject, promising that it would make them the most powerful company in South Korea. Around the same time, Yang Cheol received some devastating news. He was diagnosed with a serious illness. Because of this, Yang Cheol met with the president of Daeung Corporation and discovered Do-jun's ambitious plan. The president was so impressed by Do-jun's sharp thinking that he said Do-jun reminded him of Yang Cheol himself. Then, at Sung-jun's wedding, Yang Cheol made a surprising announcement. He declared that Sung-jun would not be leading Sunyang Corporation as expected. Instead, Sung-jun would be sent to manage a subsidiary in a distant location. Yang Cheol's announcement was a complete shock. He revealed that he was dismantling the whole system he had put in place for his eldest son and grandson to take over the company. The guests were stunned, and Sung-jun was furious. He blamed Do-jun for Yang Cheol's decision, feeling betrayed and humiliated. Then, Yang Cheol's wife confronted him, asking if his decision was because of Do-jun. It turned out there was a huge secret. Do-jun's dad wasn't actually Yang Cheol's biological son. This made everything even more complicated. Now, all of Yang Cheol's children were fighting for a bigger share of the Sunyang Corporation, and they decided to split it among the three of them. Yang Cheol's oldest son, Ji Yong-ki, held a powerful position as the vice president of Sunyang Corporation. His second son, Dong-ki, was the vice president of a subsidiary company, while his third child, Ji Hwang-young, managed Sunyang Corporation's hotels and shopping centers. They received permission to move forward with their plan to divide the company. Do-jun and Mr. Oh decided to approach Ji Hwang-young because they knew the Sunyang department stores she managed were drowning in debt. They struck a deal with Miracle Investment, where Mr. Oh offered a loan in exchange for a 30% share in the department stores. At first, things seemed to be going smoothly. But Do-jun soon realized that the tech company Ji Hwang-young had invested in was bound to fail. Even though she made some profits initially, she kept putting in more money and ended up losing a fortune. Unable to pay her debts to other Sunyang companies or repay the loan from Miracle Investment, Ji Hwang-young found herself in deep trouble. Because of her poor financial choices, Ji Hwang-young was charged with embezzlement. Desperate and scared, she turned to her husband for help, but he refused. He coldly told her that it was her own bad decisions that led to this mess and suggested she ask her father, Yang Cheol, for assistance. When Ji Huangyang met with Yang Qiu, she broke down in tears and accused Dojun of setting her up. But Yang Qiu was furious at her for making such accusations and dismissed her concerns, saying he no longer wanted anything to do with the shares he had given to his children. Meanwhile, Dojun had an idea. He offered to buy all of Ji Huangyang's shares since she couldn't pay off her debt to Miracle Investment. However, Ji Huangyang refused to sell. Frustrated, Dojun called for a board meeting at Sunyang department store to discuss the situation. Ji Huangyang was so angry that she publicly lashed out at Dojun, even taking out a personal ad to attack him. Finally, the board meeting for Sunyang department store took place. Ji Huangyang's subordinates tried to manipulate her assistant's testimony, but it didn't work. Her assistant had recorded proof and handed it over to attorney Min Yang. This put Ji Huangyang in serious trouble. She now faced the possibility of losing all her shares in the department store and getting arrested for embezzlement. Dojun gave Ji Huangyang one last chance, urging her to sell her shares to his company, saying it was her best option. But she became emotional and demanded to know why he had ruined her life. Dojun revealed that it was all for revenge, reminding her of how she had treated his mom in the past. In the end, Dojun managed to take control of Sunyang department store, and Yang Qiu didn't step in to stop him. Meanwhile, Yang Qiu's second son, Dong Qi, was plotting to take over Miracle Investment and seize all of Dojun's shares in Sunyang Corporation. Dong Qi accused Miracle Investment of embezzling funds from a tech company and presented evidence that they had sold their shares before the company went bankrupt. These accusations caused investors in Miracle Investment to withdraw their money from overseas companies, putting Mr. O and Dojun in a difficult situation. Dong Qi saw this as his opportunity to take over Miracle Investment and Dojun's stakes. However, Mr. O and Dojun were at odds with each other. Then, a tragic event shook the world, a terrorist attack on the Twin Towers in New York. This caused U.S. stock prices to plummet. Dong Qi, who had invested heavily in overseas companies, suffered major losses. In contrast, Miracle Investment had wisely pulled out of their overseas investments beforehand, avoiding significant losses. Mr. O began to suspect that Dojun had somehow predicted the attack. A month later, the stock market began to recover, and prices rose significantly. Dojun made a huge profit and was in a strong position, while Dong Qi's financial situation worsened. Seizing the opportunity, Dojun offered to buy all of Dong Qi's shares in Sunyang Investment, which could help Dong Qi recover some of his losses. At first, Dong Qi refused to accept Dojun's offer. But as more investors pulled out of his company, he was left with no choice. Frustrated and angry, Dong Qi blamed Yang Qiu for not taking action against Dojun. The next day, Yang Qiu confronted Dojun, expressing his concern that Dojun had gone too far in dealing with his uncle and aunt. Dojun defended himself, saying he was only following the lessons Yang Qiu had taught him, like never trusting anyone. Yang Qiu had a plan to make Dojun the president of the main financial company, which would eventually pave the way for Dojun to become the president of the entire Sunyang Corporation. But before this could happen, they were in a car accident. Thankfully, Dojun's subordinates saved them, but Yang Qiu ended up in a coma. His condition was serious, so the family wasn't allowed to visit him, making the situation very tense. However, Yang Qiu wasn't actually in a coma. He was pretending so he could find out who was trying to ruin Dojun's chances of becoming president. Working together, they discovered that the traitor was Song Jun, someone they had trusted. The betrayal hit Yang Qiu hard, and he began to suffer from dementia because of the emotional shock. Dojun realized that if the family found out about Yang Qiu's dementia, it would damage the company's stock prices and destroy his chances of becoming president. So, with the help of Yang Qiu's personal doctor, they managed his symptoms with medication for a short time. At a crucial meeting, Yang Qiu appointed Dojun as the president of the main financial branch, even though it put a strain on his health. Yang Qiu was determined to protect his legacy and secure the future of the company. As they left the meeting and got into the elevator, Yang Qiu's dementia suddenly returned. He acted like a child and accidentally wet himself. Dojun took care of him, cleaning up the mess, showing just how much he cared for his grandfather. But their troubles weren't over. Do-jun's team discovered new evidence about the person responsible for the sabotage and attempted murder. To their shock, it was Yang Cheol's own wife. When Do-jun confronted her, she confessed. She had done it out of anger because she resented Yang Cheol's decision to make Do-jun, who wasn't their biological grandson, the next president of the company. Do-jun threatened to have her arrested unless she promised to take better care of Yang Cheol. News of Yang Cheol's dementia eventually got out, causing Sunyang Corporation stock prices to drop. Their struggling subsidiary, Sunyang Motors, was hit the hardest. As the new president of the main financial branch, it was up to Do-jun to fix the situation. It seemed like an impossible task, but Yang Cheol had faith in him and urged him to find a way. Do-jun came up with a daring idea to sponsor the South Korean national football team for the World Cup, which was being hosted in South Korea. It was a huge risk, but the plan paid off, boosting the company's finances and stabilizing their situation. At first, the board members and leaders of the Sunyang conglomerate were doubtful about Do-jun's plan to invest in the South Korean national football team. They were skeptical, unsure if it would pay off. But Do-jun was confident and believed the team could go far in the tournament. Despite everyone's doubts, the team made it all the way to the semifinals, earning massive profits for the company and breaking records as the top car-selling company. Excited to share the good news, Do-jun rushed to tell his grandfather, only to discover that Yang Cheol had passed away. At the reading of Yang Cheol's will, it was revealed that all of his children and grandchildren would receive valuable assets and high-ranking positions within the company, except for Do-jun. Shocked and confused, Do-jun couldn't believe what he was hearing. He wondered if someone had tampered with the will and struggled to understand why his grandfather had excluded him, making him feel like he was not truly part of the Sunyang family. After Yang Cheol's death, a meeting was called to decide who would become the top stakeholder in Sunyang Corporation. The two main candidates were Do-jun and Yang Cheol's loyal personal assistant, Hang-jae. During the meeting, the board received an anonymous message accusing Do-jun of mistreating his grandfather. They were shown old CCTV footage that Hang-jae had deleted at Do-jun's request. However, the footage was harmless, simply showing Do-jun trying to protect his grandfather from an embarrassing moment. Despite this, Hang-jae was chosen as the top stakeholder. Later, it was revealed that Sung-jun had manipulated Hang-jae to take control of the corporation for himself. Finally, Do-jun discovered the truth behind why Yang Cheol had excluded him from the will. Hang-jae presented Do-jun with a new will, which revealed Yang Cheol's reasoning. He feared Do-jun would take over the company after his death and disrupt the family's legacy, so he left him nothing. Determined to gain control of Sunyang Corporation, Do-jun began buying up as many shares as he could. He approached Donkey and offered to sell his own shares, but at a much higher price. Donkey was interested, but Do-jun made it clear that he would only sell if Donkey paid twice the market price for the shares. When share prices suddenly dropped, Donkey found himself deep in debt. Then, Jianqi approached Do-jun to buy a stake in a coffee company. Do-jun set the same condition. Jianqi would have to pay double the price. Even though the terms were steep, Jianqi agreed, leaving everyone wondering about Do-jun's true motives and what he was planning next. A year had passed since Yang Cheol's death, and on the anniversary of his passing, Do-jun made a big announcement. He revealed that he had used his money to buy more shares in Sunyang Corporation, making him the largest shareholder and giving him control of his grandfather's company. To clear his name and take full control, Do-jun and Mr. Oh came up with a risky plan. Do-jun would pretend to embezzle company funds, leading to his own arrest. The idea was to use this as a trap to expose Donkey and Ji Yongki's illegal actions and prove his innocence. As the plan unfolded, Do-jun became a national hero for uncovering tax evasion at Sunyang Corporation. He was on the brink of becoming the next president when a sudden tragedy struck. A truck crashed into his car, killing him instantly. But instead of the end, Do-jun found himself waking up in the past, just after the hitmen had targeted Tae-jong. Tae-jong, who had been in a coma, was confused and overwhelmed by everything happening around him. Attorney Min Yang explained the situation and asked Tae-jong to help as a key witness against Sunyang Corporation's crimes. But as Tae-jong returned to South Korea, the company still hunted him, determined to silence him forever. Taejong was shocked to learn that 20 years had passed since Do-jun's tragic death in the car accident. Filled with determination to get revenge for what happened to Do-jun, he started searching for Mr. O. He discovered that Mr. O had left the company shortly after Do-jun's death. Taejong knew what he had to do: join forces with Mr. O and take legal action against Sunyang Corporation. With Mr. O and Min Yang by his side, Taejong fought a fierce legal battle against the powerful Sunyang family. At first, it seemed like Song-jun would win the case about Do-jun's attempted murder in Turkey, thanks to the family's influence. But Do-jun had a clever plan. Instead of focusing on the recent murder attempt, he presented evidence from 20 years ago, proving that Yang Cheol's eldest son, Ji Yang-ki, was responsible for killing Do-jun. The truth finally came out, and Song-jun's dream of becoming the president of Sunyang Corporation fell apart. The Sunyang family was forced to step down from their positions, and the company was left in ruins. Taejong, who was really Do-jun, had finally achieved the revenge he had waited so long for. He and Mr. O joined forces once again, ready to build a new and successful company together. So the moral of the story is, when life throws you into a rich and powerful family, remember, revenge is a dish best served with insider stock market tips and a side of time travel. And hey, if you ever get betrayed, just hope for a second chance. In another body.